What would you say, there's a model with actors, institutions, and structural factors in the Pathways for Peace report. Could you speak a bit more to how they kind of shape and, as you say, reinforce each other, both positively out of conflict and as well as negatively into conflict, and how that may relate to fragility and how you were thinking about that?
So, we worked very closely, I think, to all the team of the WDR on security, on conflict, security, and development was involved in our report in one way or another, in terms of advisor, in terms of providing pieces and all that. They were all involved. And the interesting things that what the WDR came up when institutional economics were so à la mode, were so, which was very important. So, everybody at the bank was reading Douglas North, or at least everybody who was working on the analytical side. And he was invited, and there was all this idea about, institution culture and all that. And it's indeed, that was the strength of the WDR. The WDR, for the first time, put the question of quality of institution right in the middle of thinking about conflict and fragility, and seeing it, the linkage between fragility and conflict. That was very, very powerful. And, as every WDR, they had all the indicators, all the sort of elements. Some was very interesting, like they said, well, to get out of fragility, we have to look at how country did it. And they did this graph that is quite famous, where you see that countries that have improved, for example, on corruption, took on average 25 years. Countries that have improved on trust of citizens took 35 years. But that was a big eye-opening, And the one that were the most scared about that were the diplomats, because they said, what do we do with that, right? Well, guys, you have to stay there for 25 years, not for 6 months or 2 weeks, right? So this was this idea that once you are stuck into these things, it takes a very long time to change. Now, what did we say with our report? We said, yes, that's very fundamental. Institutions are very fundamental. By putting institutions so centrally, we sort of forgot two things that were actually much more in the old thinking about conflict. One is the structures. So, in the structures, I would put the things you cannot really easily change. One is history. Another one is your geography. So, if you are close to Russia and you are part of a place where you had a lot of Russian involved for many years, I'm sure you're not understanding my example now. And then you have a number of historical, very complex, mixed historica. You're going to have a structural factor that is going to be determinant in any risk of conflict, right? It's a structural factor. It's a history. You don't change it. You try to desperately to interpret it in one way or another, but you cannot change it. The facts are there. It happened 2,000 years. We don't yet have a capacity to change what happened 2,000 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, in this case, more specifically. Now, those structural factors are very important. We have to look at it because it tells you the possibilities of what you can do. You cannot change them, but you have to really understand them much better and not forget everything by institutions, right? But when you do institution, not forget everything about those other factors. And then the one that I thought was the most, not innovative, but the most important to reinsert into the thinking was the one of actors. Especially because today you're in a world where I think a lot of institutions are weakening. So, before actors were constrained by institution. So an institution is, you need a lot of actors to come together and accept the rule of the game set by the institution. But today, there's more and more problem in doing that because a lot of institutions like the UNs, others, which are actually organizations like institutions are broader, tend to not be as powerful to constrain actors as before. And you have actors that come together and can change things very strongly. And we need to act on those actors. Now the diplomats are much more happy because they believe that, you know, the actors is the one we can try to convince and work with them and build on the actors. The problem is that today, it's not only the president of the republic that is an actor, is the association of former soldiers of I don't know what, the association of groups representing this ethnic minority. And these are institutions, but there are actors there. And also the incredible, powerful role that some people can think. You know, there's all this debate now. I mean, would the conflict be very different if it was not Putin who was found by Yeltsin in 2012? And there's a big conflict about that. I would say yes and no. Putin was actually, a lot of writing tells you that Putin was actually very much reflecting some of the current of Russian society and knew extremely well to build the right narrative to push them together and pull them together. But you can imagine that if somebody else with much more interest into the economy and much more skill into the economy would have taken it, maybe this person would have seen the capacity to make Russia great through their economic development, which I think very quickly Putin sort of put on the side. So the actors, the people, count very, very much. And that's what we wanted to bring back into the model, where we say, you know, there's the structure, there's the actor, the institution. These are the three elements that you have to have on your radar screen when you try to do more preventive work.